have microphones, so you can hear them better than you can hear me. But I'm very pleased that in this second round of public lectures, we are going to be addressing a very up-to-date issue, which is revolutions in the Arab world. We have 3 sessions on this topic. The first one is going to be delivered by 2 of our colleagues. Munir, who is the academic director from Tunisia. Wonderful man. We have known him for several years now. He's a scholar and he has been directing the SAT program in Tunisia. He specializes in literature, more particularly in poetry. And we are very pleased that he agreed to share with us his accounts on what happened in his country, which has taken all of us by surprise, including he, I suppose. We will learn more of it. And then I'm very pleased that with us is also Dr. Saeed Griwood. Saeed was the academic director, and now he's the dean of the SAT Africa program. And he is also a professor of cultural studies at the Institute of Economic Affairs. And, well, we are inviting him not as his capacity as a dean or as a scholar, but because he got stuck in Cairo during the beginning of what later is becoming, or what is turning out to become a revolution. And because of that, we found that this is a good topic or a good question to ask them to address. What can they tell us from their accounts? So this is the first serious reason why we have invited why we have organized this session. The other reason is less serious, and because over a dinner that we had at a wonderful restaurant that we discovered, it is called Gusti Espori. This is an Italian restaurant. It's probably one of the best Italian restaurants in Rabat. It's in Agdas. The idea came and materialized. That is why we have announced this address of the restaurant for you upstairs. It has good Italian food, good Italian wine. And so, and also they have music in the evening, so go to it in the afternoon. Okay, without any further ado, I'm going to give the floor first to my friend Munir. You can stand up or sit down, whatever makes you comfortable.
Well, thank you so very much, Abdelhai, for this nice and only half-merited introduction. I do specialize on William Wordsworth. And Wordsworth, at one point, the first anniversary of the French Revolution was in Paris, 1790. And he had, for private reasons, to stay much, much longer than anticipated. He was just passing to Blois, but he was stuck in Paris. He was stuck in Paris because then the terror had begun. And he said, the revolutionary ship was tossing like a ship in anchor. And he could not make sense of what was going on. He also described what he was experiencing as someone reading a book in a foreign language. He knew that some substance was there, but he could not decipher it. To tell you the truth, in a far modest way, this is how one feels when one is in a revolution. We don't know what is going on. Things are happening, you hear about things, you are sometimes privy to certain events. You hear rumors that you try to check out as news, and news that turn out to be false news, and so on and so forth. And the global picture, what is actually the general sway of events, no one can capture. Once you are in the midst of an event, even a trivial one like dancing, you don't know yourself you are dancing. How to distinguish the dancer from the dance? Says WBS. So, what I will give you is really an eyewitness account. What I saw, what I felt, what people told me, and by no means a global, comprehensive, holistic picture of the so-called Jasmine Revolution. We all know that things began in Tunisia on the 17th of December, in a small provincial city called Sidi Bouzid, which is in the central parts of Tunisia, a little bit godforsaken. Most of the development in the last 30 years or so in Tunisia happened on the coastline, on the shore. Tunisia has no natural resources, unlike its neighbors. Gas in Algeria, oil in Libya, so it invested heavily on tourism. And tourism, mainly mass tourism, is sand, sea, and soil. So the investment, hotels, facilities, roads, schools, institutions of the state happened on the coastline. Thereby, the hinterland was a little bit neglected. And it's in one of these cities of the hinterland that a young man on the 17th of December, a university graduate, selling fruit because he could not land himself a job, set himself on fire because he was harassed by municipal police. This is the incident, the casus belli, if you like, that started the whole thing. That very afternoon, this happened late in the morning, that very afternoon there was some street demonstration in that city, Silbuzit, which very quickly the following day spread to other little cities in the south. By the end of the month, by the end of December, in about 10 days, it had reached even those relatively opulent coastline cities of Sousse, Monastir, Mahdia, Sfax, and further north into Kairouan, and certainly west near the Algerian border in Kasserine and Tanger. By the end of the month, on the 31st, there was a big demonstration in Kasserine and Tanger, which was a violation of a curfew which had then been declared, which left about 13 people dead, killed. By the first week of January, Tunis was in turmoil. There were demonstrations by certain professional corporations, lawyers, doctors, secondary school teachers. On the 13th, the trade union, there's only one trade union in Tunisia, the Central Trade Union, declared a strike in the second major city of the country, Sfax. That strike was followed by about 100,000 people. Tunisia does not have the size of Egypt, where you have millions in Tahrir Square. 100,000 people in Tunis, in Tunisia, is like a million in Egypt. Tunisia has a population of 10 million, whereas Egypt only 80 million. So, sense of proportion. That was a very, very big demonstration, a big strike that paralyzed the whole city. The following day, the strike was to be in Tunis. And it did happen in Tunis, and I was in that strike in the afternoon of Friday the 14th. That very afternoon at 5:30, the president left the country under enormous pressure. In the meanwhile, there were about 239 people killed. Now, on the 14th of January, Friday, a friend of mine who has 3 kids, and I will talk about kids later on and the internet and what the youth did, had 3 kids who he said to me, they left in the morning and he was not able to contact them. He was trying from the cell phone, but he wasn't able. Jim knows him, our friend Hamadi Redisi and Professor Abdel Hay, and I think you met him too. He is one of the finest political scientists in Tunisia. And he said, Munir, I don't drive, I can't drive, I don't have a car, please let's go and find him out in the big strike downtown Tunis. So we went around 1 o'clock, and when we hit the main thoroughfare in Tunis, a little bit like Mo 5 here, Avenue Abi Bourguiba, we found it swaying with folks, about 25,000 people in my estimate. The people are from all walks of life, young, not so young, bourgeois, by all means, families, some air of bon enfant or even picnic. People singing, people chanting, discussion groups here, a conversation group there, people taking photos, French journalists, European journalists. It was very, very peaceful, just like a great festival. And this went on for about 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. We were moving from one crowd to another. People are kissing, embracing, fraternizing. No cop, no security whatsoever. And certainly not the army. None. Just a huge crowd massed in the main avenue opposite the Ministry of the Interior. Some were chanting hostile slogans at the Ministry of the Interior, which is the bastion of the police, the security forces. Heinous, sinister people, just like Egypt. Later on, I will talk about the similarities and the dissimilarities with what is going on now in Egypt. And suddenly Hamadi Redisi's mobile rang, and it's a French journalist from Marianne II, and said, she wants to talk with us. So we went to meet this young woman in a hotel that gives on the main thoroughfare, and we had lunch and we discussed, and then hell broke loose. That crowd was dispersed with a violence you cannot possibly imagine. We had a balcony view, so we could see the main avenue, the Hotel International, the 5th floor, and we could see huge security forces that came from nowhere, some of whom are just like the Baltagine. These are the Casseurs de Grève, people in civilian, they look just like you and me, if you like, except that they have weaponry and sticks and knives. But they were part of the security forces. They were part of the militia, either of the ruling party or some kind of brigade by the security forces that it was embedded into the crowd. We couldn't know. Of course, tear gas canisters were flying, live bullets were flying, people were screaming, and the entire avenue was empty in less than 15 minutes. And the crowd drifted into the perpendicular little streets. You have the main boulevard and then little streets, and then tug of war began, and we had an excellent view on this movement. The determination of the young people braving the tear gas canisters and the brutality, the extraordinary brutality of the anti-demonstration brigade is amazing. Just like Tahrir Square, you would see young men and young women walking like this with bare chests to the cops and say, if you want to shoot, shoot. It's a moment of great intensity and determination. Then someone also pointed out to me, someone on the rooftop. These are the sinister snipers, special brigade left out by the president who had left, who would single out what they believed to be leaders of demonstrators and shoot. And they aim at the head and the chest. They shoot to kill, they don't shoot to kill. I think we saw a couple running on the rooftops in the avenue. Around 4:30, the curfew by then, we heard, was brought down to 6 p.m. So we had about 1 hour and a half to go back home. And our car was probably less than a kilometer away from that hotel in which, by now, we knew we were trapped. Oh, in the meanwhile, we were joined by Hamadi's kids. This is the good news. This is the good news. So, we had to leave. And some said, oh, you cannot possibly leave. But at the same time, we saw people drifting and leaving in small groups. And one would say, well, listen, if this lady journalist would give you her credentials, then perhaps you can pass as a journalist and maybe you can wriggle through. But still, at 5 o'clock, we said, we had to. We could not possibly stay the night there. So we left, and we practically crossed an avenue which we left less than 2 hours before, and we found it a place that charred with burning tires further down, burning vehicles, tear gas canisters empty and still fuming, literally hundreds of security forces in all manner of uniforms, which we suspected were there, but we actually could see. Some of whom were not even aware of each other's affiliation in the structure of the Ministry of the Interior, the repressive apparatus of President Ben Ali. We were pushed, we were pulled. Some cops saying, go back, others saying, no, go, 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 go. We saw people beaten up on the opposite side of the pavement. Some were humiliated and left on their knees with hands raised for no purpose until we left. We felt they were still there until we reached the car. And near our car where we parked, we found 10 huge buses full of those plain clothes Baltagine, with all kinds of weapons. They were sitting in their buses. They did not talk to us, they did not address us, didn't even look at us. We drove, we went back. As soon as we reached home, we heard on the news, or it was rumors, that on Facebook, that Ben Ali had left the country. It was 5:35. He left the country. Later on, 8 o'clock, the Prime Minister would step in as the interim president. Do I have 5 minutes to talk about Facebook? Now, I heard that Facebook did the Jasmine revolution. This is a gross exaggeration. Facebook, social networks, technology does not do revolution, it's the people. And mainly in Tunisia and in Egypt, it's the young people, the younger generation. I think up to about a month ago, all the books you read about Arab youth is that it is depoliticized, that it is hedonistic, that it is just either soccer or the dance hall. And yet, to tell you the truth and to my shame, I somewhat believed some of this. But the Jasmine revolution in Tunisia showed absolutely the opposite. What the 2 million youth in Tunisia who are connected, according to the latest figure to Facebook, Tunisia, remember, has a population of 10 million. And for every one accessing media, like the newspaper, we know that there are 5 people who don't access it but get the information. For every newspaper sold, there are 5 people who read it, in other words. Which means that in Tunisia, with 2 million kids connected in Facebook, 10 million people get that information, all their family members. Which means that everyone in Tunisia got their information for those 5 weeks from Facebook. These are, if you like, the facts. And this is what these kids did. They shared information. Simple as that. And by sharing information, the latest information, they did 2 things. The first one is to expose the lie of the autocrat Ben Ali and his media services. Whenever Ben Ali said something, or there's a communique by the authorities, immediately on Facebook, there is something to say, no, that was a lie. For example, Ben Ali made a speech on the 31st of December when things got a little bit dicey. He said, I gave orders that no more live ammo shall be used, or should be used. Immediately on Facebook, a doctor in a clinic in Tunis sent pictures of 3 young kids killed by live ammunition. It's this kind, if you like, of information shared with 10 million people in real time that kept all the time the people more informed, or at least exposing Ben Ali's lies or the false information that was fed to them through ordinary channels like the state television and the state media. This is one thing. The other thing is it kept the movement radical. It never stopped. By, I think, the first week of January, by the 7th or the 10th, by the event in Kasserine and Tala in which 13 people were killed in one afternoon. The demands were no longer social demands for employment, for better jobs, for better quality of life, and so on and so forth, but they became political. They radicalized into a political demand. And that demand was very simple, 1 sentence: get out. Ben Ali, dégage. And everyone on Facebook, this is what also participated. The third aspect is the Facebook helped people to lift off the fear that an autocratic police regime, alas, always manages to spread. By the 7th of January, I don't know whom, suddenly you open Facebook and all the status pictures disappeared and only find the Tunisian flag with blood dripping. I don't know who started this, but at one point everyone did it. Now if you did this a month ago, you would definitely have the sinister visit by plain cops policemen at the dead of night to take you away. Just like they did Ghonim 14 days ago in Cairo, the famous Egyptian blogger. So Facebook, it shared information, exposed the lie, it kept the movement radical and always moving ahead by fanning it or giving it second wind. And at the same time, I think, because in a certain sense it is also anonymous at least it's not direct contact, it also helped allay the fear and the terror that people felt. This is what Facebook did. And in many ways, if you turn and look, and if you are monitoring events in Egypt, this is similarly what is happening in Egypt. It's a revolution, there is no doubt about it. At the beginning you think it's a social insurrection, but it's not. It's a political, big, profound, change-seeking revolution, mass of people. It is by the youth. It started as, again, social demand, but culminating and progressing into political demand. Facebook and social networks have a vital role in keeping the people together and moving forward. The difference, the Tunisian revolution ended with the ousting of the autocrat. Mubarak is still clinging to power. We wait and see. Thank you for your attention.
I think it's really like I thought at least that this would be a little bit like preposterous on my part to talk about the Egyptian revolution, but in many ways actually I was confronted actually with at least two main conclusions that I have personally drawn from what Munir, who is actually more entitled to speak about the Tunisian revolution than I did. And the first one is really the fact that within, something like a social uprising or a revolution, you really don't get the general sway of things. You're there